There are places in the world we were never meant to step into, places where the air feels too still, where shadows move when you're not looking, where something ancient waits in silence. 6 years ago, my friends and I went camping in the deep forests of West Virginia. We thought we were alone. We were wrong. We were 6 friends: me, Jake, Travis, Cooper, Matt, and Derek. We had just graduated high school, and before we went our separate ways, college, jobs, the rest of our lives, we decided to take one last camping trip together. It was tradition. We had done it before, and the woods felt like a second home to us. But this time was different. A brutal storm had just swept through the area the night before, leaving the forest drenched and eerily quiet. We should have taken the silence as a warning, but instead we joked about how creepy it felt. The usual sounds of birds and rustling leaves were absent, replaced by an unnatural stillness. The deeper we went, the heavier the air became, thick, charged, like the moment before lightning strikes. Then we saw it, a shadow. It moved fast, cutting across the path ahead, too fast for a person, too smooth for an animal. We all froze. What the hell was that? Nobody argued. Nobody wanted to. Because deep down, we all knew that wasn't a deer. We continued walking, pushing down the unease. But something in the woods had changed. The air felt heavier, the silence more suffocating. And as we finally reached our campsite and the sun began to set, I had the strangest feeling. Like something was watching. Setting up camp felt different this time. The trees loomed over us, their shadows twisting in the dying light. Every crack of a branch, every rustle in the underbrush made us pause. We were on edge, but no one wanted to admit it. Guys, do you see that? We followed his gaze into the trees. At first I saw nothing but darkness between the trunks. Then something shifted. A figure. Tall, unnaturally thin, motionless. For a second I convinced myself it was just a trick of the light. A tree, a shadow, something explainable. But then, it moved. Not like a person. Not like anything I'd ever seen. One second it was standing there. The next, it was somewhere else. Like an image flickering between two places. My chest tightened. Every hair on my body stood on end. Just a trick of the eyes. But no one else laughed. That night, we sat around the fire close, like kids scared of the dark. The woods felt suffocating, the silence unnatural. Then, as the fire crackled, we heard it. A whisper. Low. Garbled. Like words spoken just below the edge of hearing. I turned toward the sound, but there was nothing there. Just trees and shadows. The fire flickered, throwing long shapes against the trunks, and I swore I saw them move. Sleep didn't come easy that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I felt something standing just beyond the firelight, watching, waiting. I woke up before dawn, the air unnaturally cold. My breath came out in visible puffs, even though it was summer. Something felt wrong. Then I saw it. A few feet from our tents, the ground was dead. A perfect circle of withered grass and brittle leaves, like something had drained the life from it overnight. And at its center, a footprint. Large, deep, wrong. It wasn't human. It wasn't an animal. It was something else. Guys, wake up! One by one, the others crawled out of their tents, bleary-eyed, until they saw what I was looking at. Silence fell over the group. No one knew what to say. Then Matt pulled out his compass. The needle spun wildly, completely useless. Derek tried to turn on his flashlight. Dead. Even though he had changed the batteries just the day before. Guys? We all turned to him. He was staring at his wrist. And there, just beneath the skin, was a faint mark. A small, perfect triangle. A cold shiver ran down my spine. We all checked our wrists. We all had the same mark. None of us remembered getting it. None of us had any explanation. And none of us wanted to stay long enough to find out more. We packed up in silence and left the woods that morning, never speaking of what had happened. Never looking back. But it wasn't over. It was only the beginning. We never talked about that night. Not once. It wasn't an agreement we made. It just happened. Like our minds refused to process what we had seen. Like saying it out loud would somehow make it real. We buried it. Pretended it was just a weird, unexplainable night, and moved on with our lives. Or at least we tried to. Years passed. We graduated, got jobs, moved to different cities. The 6 of us drifted apart, connected only by the occasional text or social media post. But even as life moved forward, that trip lingered in the back of my mind. It never truly left me. And sometimes, late at night, I'd wake up with the strangest feeling. Like something was standing in the corner of my room, just beyond the shadows. Then one day I got a letter. It was from Cooper. He had been digging, researching those woods, looking into other stories, trying to make sense of what had happened to us. And what he found chilled me to my core. Our experience wasn't unique. For decades, maybe even centuries, people had reported strange occurrences in those woods. Campers, hunters, hikers, all of them describing the same things. The silence, the figures, the footprints, and the marks. Cooper had found old police reports, missing persons cases, even a handful of survivors who had experienced exactly what we did. They had gone into the woods, seen the figure, woken up with the triangular mark. Some of them had gone missing years later. Others reported the same eerie sensation we all felt, like they were still being watched. One of them wrote something that sent ice through my veins. Once you've been marked, it doesn't forget you. At first I wanted to believe it was all just paranoia, a coincidence, a trick of the mind. Then, something happened. It was late one night, and I was alone in my cabin. I work as a forest ranger now, stationed deep in the mountains of Colorado. The woods are my home. I thought I had made peace with what happened all those years ago. But that night the air changed. I smelled something familiar, sharp, metallic, a scent I hadn't smelled since that trip. My stomach twisted. I tried to shake it off, but then, just beyond the trees, a shadow moved, tall, too fast, too smooth. My breath caught in my throat. I grabbed my flashlight, my hands shaking as I stepped outside. The wind was eerily still, the forest too quiet. I swept the beam of light across the trees, my pulse pounding. Nothing. But just as I was about to turn back, I saw it, a perfect circle of dead vegetation, and at its center, a footprint, massive, deep, just like before. The air around me felt electric. My ears started ringing, and then, just at the edge of hearing, so faint I almost convinced myself I imagined it. A whisper. Not words. Not exactly, just something. I stumbled back inside, locking the door behind me, but deep down, I knew it wouldn't matter. Because I finally understood. We didn't leave it in those woods 6 years ago. It left with us. It marked us. And now, no matter where we go, no matter how far we run, it's still watching, waiting, and one day, it's going to take us back. There are things in this world we were never meant to understand, things that leave their mark, things that never let go. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more terrifying tales. Have you ever experienced something unexplainable in the woods? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and until next time, stay safe. And whatever you do, stay out of the dark.